There are moments in life when a person feels lost, not rebellious, not evil, just tired, confused, hurting. And in those quiet moments, the search for comfort can begin. Not every voice that offers guidance speaks the truth. Not every unseen force is sent to help. What appears comforting can hide something dangerous. And what begins as curiosity can become an invitation. Spiritism often enters a person's life quietly. A charm, a symbol, a reading, a message. Something small, something that seems harmless. But some doors should never be opened. What enters through that door does not bring real peace. Fear begins to grow. Confusion settles in. A heaviness takes its place where calm once lived. This conflict is not new. From ancient times, Satan has used false worship and spiritistic practices to mislead mankind. While many were drawn to what Jehovah had forbidden, faithful servants chose obedience. They refused to take part in what was unclean. But Jehovah does not abandon those who sincerely want help. He lovingly helps honest-hearted people find the truth. And through the preaching work, sincere ones can be guided to the answers they truly need. Jehovah's word gives a clear warning. Do not turn to the spirit mediums and do not consult fortune tellers. Why? Because Jehovah knows what is behind these practices. His warning is not harsh. It is protective. Satan and the demons are real. They are enemies of Jehovah and enemies of mankind. Satan is the original rebel. The demons are angels who joined him in rebellion. They do not guide people toward safety. They mislead them away from God. The night was cold, and the silence around King Saul felt heavier than armor. He sat alone in his tent, listening to the faint crackle of oil lamps and the distant sounds of soldiers settling in for the dark. Outside, the enemy waited. The Philistines had gathered in force, and their presence pressed against Saul's mind like a tightening hand. He had faced battles before. He had known danger before. But this was different. This time, fear had settled deep inside him. Saul had once stood tall with confidence. He had once been chosen, favored, given a place of honor among Jehovah's people. He knew what it meant to be king. He knew what it meant to hear Jehovah's commands. And he knew, better than most, what Jehovah had said about spirit mediums and those who practiced forbidden arts. They were not to be consulted. They were not to be tolerated. Such practices were detestable to Jehovah. Saul knew that. And yet knowing what is right does not always stop a frightened man from doing what is wrong. He lowered his head into his hands. He had tried to seek direction, but no answer had come. No reassurance. No peace. What he wanted was immediate certainty, immediate relief. Some word to steady his trembling heart. Instead of humbling himself before Jehovah, instead of fully returning to the God whose favor he had neglected, Saul sat in the dark and let his fear grow. Fear can be loud when faith is weak. Finally, Saul looked up and called softly for his servants. When they entered, they found not the commanding king of earlier years, but a man worn thin by dread. His face was drawn. His eyes were restless. "Find me a woman who is a spirit medium," he said. The words seemed to darken the room. The servants hesitated. They knew what he was asking. They knew what Jehovah's law said. They also knew Saul himself had once driven such people out of the land. Yet now the king who had condemned Spiritism was asking to be led straight to it. At last, one of them answered quietly. There was such a woman in En-dor. Saul nodded, but there was no dignity in it, only desperation. He rose and removed the garments that marked him as king. Piece by piece, he set aside the visible signs of his office, until he looked less like the ruler of Israel, more like a man trying to hide from what he had become. He dressed himself in plain clothing, wrapped himself in secrecy, and prepared to leave under the cover of night. A king in disguise is a pitiful sight. With two servants beside him, Saul stepped out into the darkness. The road to En-dor stretched ahead beneath a cold sky. The wind moved across the hills, whispering through dry grass and brushing against their cloaks. Their torches threw weak light against the ground. never far enough to make the journey feel safe. In Saul's mind, he was no longer choosing rebellion. He was choosing survival. That is one of Satan's oldest lies, to make a wrong thing look necessary. The house at En-dor stood apart from everything else, small and shadowed in the night. A faint glow came from within. Saul stopped outside for a moment, staring at the door. He could still turn back. He could still leave. He could still reject the darkness before stepping into it. But the fear inside him pushed harder than his conscience. So Saul entered. Inside, the room was dim and close. Firelight trembled against rough stone walls. Smoke hung in the air. The woman looked up at the strangers before her with a cautious eye. She did not know at first who stood before her, only that something about this visit felt dangerous. Saul spoke carefully, hiding his identity. "Conjure up for me, please," he said, asking her to bring up one he would name. The woman stiffened. Suspicion crossed her face. She reminded him that Saul had removed spirit mediums from the land. Why then was this man asking her to risk her life? Saul swore to her that no punishment would come to her. Even here, in the middle of his disobedience, Saul used words meant to calm another person into joining him in sin. At last, the woman agreed. Then came the moment that turned the room colder than the night outside. As the forbidden act unfolded, the woman suddenly cried out. Fear seized her face. Whatever she perceived, it shook her so deeply that her voice broke through the silence. She looked directly at Saul, and in that instant she knew, "You are Saul." The disguise had failed. Saul, the king of Israel, stood exposed in a place he never should have entered, doing what Jehovah had clearly condemned. It was a strange and tragic picture. The king of Jehovah's people sitting in the house of a spirit medium, taking strength in the very place he never should have entered, preparing to walk back into the night with even less peace than when he came. Nothing about that house could help him. Nothing there could repair what had been broken between him and Jehovah. Nothing in Spiritism could offer what only God can give. When Saul finally rose, the darkness outside had not changed. The enemy was still there. The fear was still there. And now the weight of his disobedience rested on him as well. He had gone looking for answers apart from Jehovah, and what he found was terror, shame, and deeper ruin. He left the woman's house the same way he'd come, in the night. But he did not leave the same man. The tragedy of Saul's journey is not only that he sought a spirit medium, it is that he did so while already knowing Jehovah's law. He was not ignorant. He was not misled by confusion alone. He knew what Jehovah had said. He knew Spiritism was unclean. He knew it was wrong. Yet he let fear become greater than obedience. And fear, when it replaces trust in Jehovah, can lead a person straight into darkness. That is why Jehovah's warnings are so strong. Not because he wants to keep people from something good, but because there is nothing good waiting for them there. Spiritism promises answers, but it offers deception. It pretends to reveal hidden things, but it hides the truth that it is tied to rebellion against God. It may seem mysterious or powerful, but behind it stands Satan and the demons, enemies who do not love mankind and never seek its good. Saul's story proves that no one turns to Spiritism and becomes safer. No one disobeys Jehovah and finds peace through forbidden things. The path away from Jehovah does not become light simply because someone walks it in desperation. It remains darkness. And still, the lesson reaches beyond Saul's time. What Jehovah condemned then, he condemns now. The forms may change. The world may use different names. It may package Spiritism as insight, entertainment, healing, or harmless curiosity. But what is behind it has not changed. Jehovah's view has not changed. What he calls detestable is still dangerous. That is why true worshippers do not keep anything connected to Spiritism. They do not excuse it. They do not hide it away. They do not treat it as harmless decoration or private comfort. They reject it fully. They remove it from their lives. They choose loyalty to Jehovah over curiosity, over fear, over the false promise of hidden knowledge. His story remains as a warning for everyone who would serve God now. When fear comes, do not go looking for answers in darkness. When distress comes, do not open the door to what Jehovah has condemned. And when the world whispers that forbidden things can bring comfort, remember the king who went searching through the night and found only deeper sorrow. Jehovah's way protects. Spiritism never does. Even now, Jehovah's angels are supporting the work of helping sincere people learn about him. While Satan and the demons seek to deceive, Jehovah lovingly guides those searching for truth. He leads them toward peace, protection, and a clean standing before him. At some point, the truth becomes clear. What seemed harmless is exposed for what it really is. And a choice must be made. Will the door remain open, or will it finally be closed? When that door is closed, peace can return. Not because every problem disappears, but because the lie has been rejected, the darkness has been pushed back, and the heart has turned back to Jehovah. Stay clear of Spiritism. Stay close to Jehovah. There are moments in life when a person feels lost, not evil, not rebellious, just tired, confused, hurting. And in those moments, the search for comfort can become dangerous. Because not every voice that offers guidance speaks the truth. Not every sign comes from a good source. And not every door should be opened. For many, Spiritism begins as curiosity, a search for answers, a need to feel close to something unseen, a longing to understand the future, or reconnect with the past. It may seem harmless at first, a symbol, a charm, a reading, a message, a whisper that says, "You are not alone. Let us help you." But Jehovah's word gives a warning. Do not turn to the spirit mediums and do not consult fortune tellers. Why? Because behind these practices is not light. Behind them is deception. The Bible reveals that Satan and the demons are real. They are not myths. They are not imaginary forces. They are enemies of Jehovah and enemies of mankind. Satan is the original rebel, the one who turned against Jehovah and led others into rebellion. The demons are angels who joined him. Once part of Jehovah's heavenly family, they became corrupt, wicked, and opposed to everything good and clean.
And so the lesson stands, as clear now as it was then: stay far away from Spiritism. Do not invite into your life what Jehovah has condemned. Do not reach for comfort where no true comfort exists. Stay close to Jehovah, trust His word, and refuse every path that leads away from Him. Because those who love Jehovah do not leave the door open to darkness. They close it, and they walk toward the light.